History, story, history. What's what? Hello people of the world, this is Bowen, English teacher, coming to you via the internet. In this video, we are here to talk about the difference between history and story in English, which Brazilians never seem to get. As always, there is a transcript of this video below in English and a translation into Portuguese, done by Immersion Now's very own Camilo Husi. So, practice your listening first, and when you have problems, use the transcripts to help you understand. Let me tell you a story, Brazil. In all my time here, this might be the mistake I hear most commonly with my students, from the beginner level to the advanced level. After all, in modern Brazilian Portuguese, you got one word for what in English we have two words for. Fulano me contou uma história sobre fulano. Fulano estudou história. You guys have the same word? Not so in English. Those sentences require two different words. History is the subject at school or the university. I study Greek history. I study Roman history. I prefer the history of the Druids. European history has a lot of wars. History tells us it's not smart to invade Russia. The history of the United States is about expansion and domination. Speaking about the Americas, my favorite book about pre-Columbian history in the Americas is 1491 by Charles Mann. Who are some famous Brazilian historians? Darcy Ribeiro. Do you have a favorite book about Brazilian history? Here's mine. O Povo Brasileiro. This is an interesting history book. So, history is a subject that is studied, recorded, and constructed by historians. It exists in biographies, autobiographies, historical accounts, archaeological records, geology, or art, and generally is discussed in academic contexts. Story. Story could be something that happened to you, or what happened to your friend last month, or a legend, a myth, or a fairy tale. Those are stories. I like to tell stories. Telling stories is how I pass experience to others. Sometimes I tell the story of how I went from Colombia to Brazil through the Amazon rainforest. It is a story of international intrigue, not fit for YouTube. Or sometimes you hear a story from another person. I met Beltrana at a party on Friday. She told me a crazy story about her ex getting drunk and waking up 5 days later in a small town in Roraima with no clothes, money, or ID. You know the story about Ronaldo the Phenomenon and the transvestites? What a story! Strangely enough, before coming to Brazil, I heard other stories about men accidentally going home with transvestites. Oh my god. What is that between your legs? Do you know I'm from Bahia? Leave a comment below if you want to hear the story. You heard the story of the three pigs? Yeah, everybody knows that story. You seen the Disney film Frozen? The story about a princess who hides her strange, icy superpowers until the day her kingdom is threatened by foreign interests. Was Frozen based on a true story? Lots of films are based on a true story, but don't get confused. They are not historical by any means. They are stories based on events that may or may not have happened in the way they are presented. Sometimes, if you want to make a story better, you have to exaggerate the details of it to make it more interesting. Like the time I choked out the giant in jiu-jitsu class. Baby, he was 2 meters tall. He weighed 140 kilos of pure muscle. His hands were like rocks. Gray area. There is, of course, lots of gray area. Let's look at Shakespeare. Shakespeare knew how to tell a story. Shakespeare wrote 3 types of plays: comedies, tragedies, and histories. The comedies are the comedies. Easy enough. Funny stories. An example of a tragedy is the story of Macbeth. Macbeth kills the king. Macbeth becomes king, and then kills anybody against him. But it's a tragedy, right? So everybody dies. Macbeth is a great story. Macbeth is based on a true story. Based on. There was a similarly named Scottish king, but the stories don't necessarily jibe. On the other hand, a history by Shakespeare is Richard III. Richard III wants to be king, so he kills everybody else in line for the throne. His older brother, his nephews. These plays depict the kings of England in moments of turbulence in English history. But are they truer than Macbeth? It's hard to say. To some degree, yes, because there are more written documents in English about these people. Plus, the events happened relatively more recent than Antony and Cleopatra, for example. But we must remember, Shakespeare was paid good money to write these plays, so he'd better tell the story in a way the patrons would like. Write it down, put on some costumes, and whammo! Now it's a history, but not necessarily history. So, don't always believe what is said in history is true. In English we say history is written by the winners. Not so far off there. All the same, the good historian needs to have an eye for truth and use their time cross-referencing different sources, trying to find that elusive element of truth that makes their work credible. So in sum, history is academic. Stories are accounts, fictional or true, meant to entertain and teach. And the truth of each? Well, truth is relative. And that's another video altogether. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked it, please click like below and subscribe to our channel. This is Mark A. Bowen, signing off.